You're tired. Not just the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that sits deep in your bones. You wake up, and before the day even begins, you already feel drained. You push yourself harder, thinking maybe you're just not strong enough, but the truth is, being tired doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been carrying too much, for too long. And here's the question I want you to hold on to: if you dared to rest, if you dared to breathe, what kind of strength could be reborn in you? There are moments in life when you wake up in the morning, stare at the ceiling, and already feel exhausted before the day even begins. You drag yourself out of bed, not because you feel alive, but because you have responsibilities. You tell yourself, I can't stop. I have to keep moving. I don't have a choice. And yet, every step feels heavy, every breath feels like it requires more effort than it used to. If this sounds like you, you are not alone. Millions of adults, especially between the ages of 25 and 50, are silently fighting this very battle. The world tells you to keep pushing, to keep working, to keep producing. The culture you live in praises hustle, resilience, and productivity. But what it rarely talks about is the quiet, invisible weight of exhaustion that builds up over time. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away after one night of sleep, the kind that sinks into your bones and makes you wonder if life has lost its meaning. And here's the painful truth you may not have said out loud: sometimes, you feel like a failure simply because you're tired. Somewhere along the way, you've been convinced that needing rest, pausing, or feeling drained is a sign of weakness. You judge yourself harshly. You look at others who seem to have it together, and you ask yourself, why can't I keep up? What's wrong with me? I want to pause here and speak directly to your heart: nothing is wrong with you. Being tired does not mean you are broken. Feeling drained does not mean you are weak. What you are experiencing has a name: burnout, exhaustion, overwhelm. And it is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of how much you've been carrying. Think about how long you've been running without stopping. Think about the weight of the deadlines, the expectations, the bills, the family obligations, the unspoken pressure to always perform at work and in life. You've been asked to show up for everyone, all the time. But when was the last time someone asked, how are you, really? When was the last time you gave yourself permission to stop pretending and just admit, I am tired? This is the unspoken pain so many adults carry. They're tired, but they keep smiling. They're exhausted, but they keep working. They're drained, but they keep saying yes when their whole body is begging them to say no, and deep inside, they wonder if maybe they're just not strong enough. But here's the truth you've been needing to hear: being tired does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. It means you've given so much of yourself to survive, to provide, to keep going, that your body and your soul are now asking you to slow down. Exhaustion is not weakness. It's a signal. A signal that something needs to change. So, if you are listening to this and you feel like your energy is slipping away, if you're questioning your worth because you can't seem to keep up anymore, I want you to know, you are not alone, and you are not weak. This space, right here, right now, is for you. Let's begin this journey together, and let's uncover the truth: fatigue does not define you. It reminds you that you are alive, that you need care, and that you deserve to breathe again. Let's be honest, the hardest part of burnout is not only the exhaustion itself, but the guilt and confusion that come with it. You are tired, yes. But what makes it worse is that little voice inside your head that says, other people can handle it, why can't you? You must be weak. You must be doing something wrong. That voice keeps you trapped in shame, and shame makes the exhaustion even heavier. But let's pause for a second. What is really happening here? Why do so many adults, especially in their prime years, from 25 to 50, fall into this pit of emptiness and burnout? The truth is, burnout doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds, slowly, almost invisibly. It creeps in like a silent guest, while you are busy keeping up with life. At first, it looks like staying late at work, just this once. Then it turns into checking emails at midnight. Then, without even noticing, weekends are no longer about rest, but about catching up on everything you didn't finish during the week. Over time, you forget what true rest even feels like. Another reason lies in the culture around us. In modern American society, being busy is worn like a badge of honor. If you're not hustling, if you're not constantly grinding, you're seen as lazy, unambitious, or even unworthy. We've created a world where people feel more valuable when they are overworked than when they are balanced. And this culture pushes you to ignore the signals of your body, to silence the whispers of your soul that beg for rest. Think about the messages you've absorbed since childhood: work hard and you'll succeed. Don't complain, just push through. Rest is for the weak. These phrases may sound like motivation, but in reality, they often become chains that trap you in a cycle of overwork and self-criticism. And then there's comparison. You scroll through social media and see others smiling, traveling, achieving milestones. You look around at colleagues who seem to thrive under pressure. You compare their highlight reels to your behind-the-scenes struggles. And suddenly, your exhaustion feels like proof that you are somehow less than them. But here's the problem. What you don't see is the cost behind their smiles, the sacrifices behind their achievements. Many of those people are just as tired, just as drained, but they hide it, just like you do. We live in a world where everyone is performing, but very few are being honest. Burnout also comes from the endless roles you're forced to juggle. Maybe you're a parent trying to be present for your children while climbing the career ladder. Maybe you're the eldest child in your family, carrying financial responsibilities for everyone else. Maybe you're the one in your friend group who always shows up, always listens, always gives. You've been the strong one for so long that now, when you finally collapse, you don't know who to lean on. And so, the exhaustion deepens. It's not just physical. It's emotional. It's mental. You start to feel detached from the things you once enjoyed. You lose interest in hobbies. You wake up on Monday already wishing it was Friday. You drag yourself through the motions of life, not because you're living, but because you're surviving. That's the real problem. Burnout is not simply about being tired. It's about being disconnected, from yourself, from your passions, from your sense of purpose. It's about feeling like life has turned into one long to-do list, and no matter how much you check off, the list only grows longer. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you live in burnout long enough, you begin to internalize it as your identity. You stop saying, "I am tired today," and you start saying, "I am just a tired person." You stop seeing exhaustion as a temporary state, and you start believing it defines who you are. That's when hopelessness creeps in. So let's name the problem clearly: you are not weak. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are burned out. And burnout is not a personal flaw, it is a signal, a warning sign that your way of living is out of balance. It is your mind and body waving a red flag, saying, something has to change. The tragedy is that instead of listening to this signal, we often silence it. We numb it with caffeine, with scrolling, with endless distractions. We push through, telling ourselves, "I just need to work harder, I just need to be stronger." But that only digs the hole deeper. It's time to be honest with yourself. You're not just tired, you are depleted. You're not just stressed, you are stretched beyond your limits. And pretending otherwise will not help you heal. Naming the problem is the first step toward freedom. Because when you see burnout for what it truly is, you can finally stop blaming yourself and start seeking a different path. And that's what we will begin to explore. Now that we've named the problem, let's talk about something most people rarely give themselves permission to do: to rest, to slow down, to breathe. It sounds simple, almost too simple. And yet, for so many adults, especially those caught in the cycle of burnout, rest feels impossible. It feels undeserved. It feels like a luxury reserved for someone else. You tell yourself, "I'll rest when the work is done. I'll take a break when things calm down. I'll breathe when life gets easier." But here's the truth: the work will never be fully done, things rarely calm down, and life doesn't suddenly get easier on its own. If you keep waiting for the right time to rest, you'll wait forever. So what if, instead of treating rest as a reward, you treated it as a necessity? Like food. Like water. Like oxygen. Nobody questions whether they deserve to eat when they're hungry or breathe when they're gasping for air. So why do we question whether we deserve to rest when we are exhausted? The first step toward healing from burnout is shifting this mindset. Rest is not weakness. Rest is not laziness. Rest is responsibility, responsibility toward your body, your mind, your relationships, and your future. Because without it, you cannot keep giving, you cannot keep working, and you cannot keep living in a way that feels whole. But let's make this practical. Because you don't need grand, dramatic changes to begin. Sometimes it's the small, consistent actions that open the door to a new life. Start by listening. Really listening, to your body, your emotions, your inner signals. When your body feels heavy, don't just drown it in caffeine. Pause. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Maybe it's 5 minutes of silence. Maybe it's a walk outside. Maybe it's permission to say no to something that drains you. These are not acts of weakness. These are acts of self-respect. Second, set boundaries. One of the reasons burnout thrives is because you keep saying yes to everything. Yes to work. Yes to extra projects. Yes to social obligations. Yes to family demands. And in the middle of all those yes, you've quietly been saying no to yourself. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. They let the right things in and keep the draining things out. Practice saying no, not because you don't care, but because you do care, about your health, your sanity, and your future. Third, rediscover small joys. Burnout makes everything feel gray, colorless, empty. But sometimes, light returns not in huge transformations, but in small sparks. Think about the things that once made you feel alive: music, reading, painting, running, cooking, laughing with a friend. Even if you don't feel like it at first, start reintroducing them into your life in small doses. Let joy be medicine. Fourth, breathe. Truly breathe. In the rush of daily life, we often forget the simplest practice of all. Try it right now. Inhale deeply through your nose. Hold it for a moment. Exhale slowly. Do it again. That breath costs nothing, takes seconds, and yet, it reminds you that you are alive. It grounds you. It tells your nervous system, you are safe, you can slow down. Fifth, allow yourself to ask for help. This one is perhaps the hardest, because for so long you've been the one others depend on. You've been the strong one, the reliable one, the problem solver. But strength does not mean doing everything alone. Real strength is humility. Real strength is saying, I cannot carry this by myself, and that's okay. Whether it's a trusted friend, a therapist, a coach, or even a community, find a space where you can speak honestly about your exhaustion. Sometimes healing begins the moment you stop carrying the weight in silence. And finally, remember this: recovery is not a straight line. Some days, you will feel progress. Other days, you will feel like you're back at the beginning. That does not mean you failed. It means you're human. Healing is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Every small step you take toward caring for yourself is a victory. Now, here's something to hold on to: burnout is not the end of your story. It is a signal, yes, but also an invitation. An invitation to build a life that doesn't constantly drain you. An invitation to choose differently. An invitation to rediscover the strength that comes not from pushing harder, but from pausing, resetting, and rising again. So if you've been believing that being tired means being weak, let me tell you, the truth is the opposite. The fact that you're still here, even while exhausted, proves your strength. And choosing to rest, choosing to heal, choosing to breathe again, that will be the beginning of a new chapter, one you deserve to write. Stories are powerful. They carry lessons in ways that advice and instructions cannot. And maybe what you need right now is not more theory, but a living example, a reminder that recovery from burnout is possible, that life can feel meaningful again. So let me share with you the story of someone I once knew. For the sake of privacy, I'll call her Anna. Anna was the kind of person everyone relied on. At work, she was the one who always said yes, always stayed late, always picked up the extra projects no one else wanted. At home, she was the one her family leaned on, the dependable daughter, the supportive sister, the reliable friend. People admired her strength, her discipline, her endless energy. On the outside, she looked like she had everything together. But behind closed doors, Anna was falling apart. She couldn't sleep. She woke up each morning with a knot in her stomach, already dreading the day. Her heart raced for no reason. She found herself snapping at people she loved, even though she didn't want to. Coffee stopped working. Weekends weren't enough to recharge. The hobbies that once brought her joy, painting, playing the guitar, even walking in the park, felt meaningless now. She thought she just needed to push harder. To be more disciplined. To tough it out. But the harder she pushed, the emptier she felt. Until one evening, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, she came home, sat on her couch, and burst into tears. And she couldn't stop. That moment was her breaking point, but also her turning point. Instead of hiding it, Anna did something different. She called a close friend and admitted, for the first time, "I don't think I'm okay. I think I'm burned out." That single act, speaking her truth out loud, lifted a weight she didn't even realize she was carrying. Her friend listened, not with judgment, but with compassion. And then gently said, "You don't have to do this alone." That night, Anna made a decision. Not to quit her job overnight, not to run away, not to magically fix everything. But to begin. To take small, intentional steps toward healing. The first thing she did was allow herself to rest. She gave herself permission to leave the office on time, even if not everything was perfect. She stopped checking her email at midnight. She reintroduced quiet evenings where she read a book or simply sat in silence. At first, it felt uncomfortable, almost guilty. But slowly, she began to notice that her body was responding. The headaches lessened. Her breathing slowed. Her sleep improved. Then, she began setting boundaries. She practiced saying no. At first, it felt terrifying. What if people thought she was lazy? What if they stopped respecting her? But something surprising happened, people adjusted. They didn't abandon her. They didn't hate her. In fact, some even respected her more. She realized the world did not collapse when she stopped saying yes to everything. Anna also returned to the small joys she had abandoned. She picked up her guitar again, not to perform, not to impress anyone, but simply to play. She went for walks in the park, not as exercise, but as a way to reconnect with the world around her. She let herself laugh again with friends. She let herself be imperfect. And perhaps most importantly, she sought help. She began seeing a therapist, someone who could guide her through the tangled thoughts and emotions she had buried for years. She learned that her worth was not tied to productivity, that rest was not a crime, that asking for help was a sign of strength, not failure. It wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks. Days when old habits came back, days when she felt like she was sliding into the same exhaustion again. But slowly, with persistence, she built a new rhythm of life. Months later, I remember seeing her smile, not the polite, forced smile she used to wear at work, but a real one. A smile that came from inside. She said something I'll never forget. "I thought burnout was the end of me. But it was actually the beginning of learning who I really am, beyond the roles and responsibilities." It forced me to rebuild my life, not around expectations, but around what truly matters. Anna's story is not unique. In fact, you might see yourself in her. You might feel her exhaustion, her fear, her relief, her renewal. And if you do, let this be your reminder: healing is possible. You don't have to stay stuck in burnout forever. Burnout is not a life sentence. It is a signal, a wake-up call, an invitation to begin again. And just like Anna, you too can find your way back, not to the old life that drained you, but to a new one that sustains you. So maybe tonight, as you hear these words, you can take your first small step. Close your laptop at a reasonable hour. Turn off your phone for a while. Sit in silence. Write down your feelings. Call a friend. Say no to something that doesn't serve you. Or simply, breathe. Every big transformation begins with a small act of courage. Let today be yours. Take a deep breath with me, right now. Inhale slowly. Hold it. And let it out. How often do you give yourself that gift? A single breath that isn't rushed, isn't about surviving, but about living. You've spent so much of your life running, chasing deadlines, expectations, the next goal, the next paycheck, the next approval. And somewhere along the way, you forgot the simple truth: you are not a machine. You are not here only to perform, produce, or prove your worth. You are a human being. And humans get tired. Humans need rest. Humans are allowed to pause. If you've taken one thing from this journey we've shared together, let it be this: being tired does not mean you are weak. Fatigue is not failure. Rest is not laziness. And asking for help is not a sign of defeat. The truth is, some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not the ones who never fall, but the ones who have fallen, admitted their pain, and chosen to rise again. Strength is not about never breaking. Strength is about healing after you've been broken. Maybe today, you are standing at that breaking point. Maybe you've been holding yourself together for too long, convincing everyone, and maybe even yourself, that you're fine. But deep down, you know. You know your body is asking you to slow down. You know your heart is asking you to feel again. You know your soul is begging for a pause. Listen to it. Don't silence it. Don't ignore it. Because the moment you choose to rest, to breathe, to honor your limits, is the moment you start becoming stronger, not weaker. The world won't fall apart if you stop for a while. But you might fall apart if you don't. So tonight, or tomorrow, or whenever you feel the weight of exhaustion pressing down on you, remember Anna's story. Remember that strength is not built by grinding yourself into the ground, it's built by allowing yourself to rise after you've rested. And here's a question I want to leave with you, a question that could change the way you see yourself. If you dared to rest, if you dared to breathe, could you come back stronger than ever before? Don't just brush that question aside. Sit with it. Reflect on it. Let it guide your next step. Because life is not about proving your worth to the world. Life is about living in a way that reminds you of your worth every single day. And when you finally choose rest, not as an escape, but as a form of courage, you will discover that your energy, your clarity, and your hope were never gone. They were simply waiting for you to slow down long enough to find them again. So, my friend, give yourself permission tonight. Permission to pause. Permission to heal. Permission to believe that you are not weak for being tired, you are wise for listening to what your soul needs. And when you rise again, and you will, you'll rise not as the worn-out version of yourself, but as someone renewed. Someone who has learned that life isn't about running endlessly, but about moving forward with purpose, balance, and strength. Remember this: fatigue does not define you. What defines you is the choice you make now, the choice to rest, to recover, and to rise again. And maybe one day, when someone you love feels the same exhaustion you feel today, you'll be able to look them in the eyes and say, "It's okay. You're not weak. You're just human. And you deserve to rest."